Welcome to the Redhead Reveal podcast, where we reveal what it means to truly connect. I'm Jenn Pinkerton, your Redhead host. I'm a psychotherapist, high-performance coach, sexologist, writer, and speaker. As a connection expert, I help people transform by exploring the root causes and beliefs and behaviors that hold them back. Let's talk about living a life where you thrive. Hi, today on the Redhead Reveal podcast, I have a much heavier topic, and normally I talk about things that are lighter, and this one's really near and dear to me. This goes along with the horrible tragedy of what's happened in the Hill Country and with Camp Mystic, and personally I have a connection to that, and that my daughters went to Camp Mystic, and it holds such a special place in my heart. And so this loss, this tragedy, this sense of despair is so big. It's overwhelming, and I've spent the last week really trying to give a lot of grief support and therapeutic support to people who are really hurting. And so I thought I wanted to shift gears a little bit and change up my podcast schedule to be able to talk about grief. I want to let everybody know, first of all, that what is grief? In my opinion, grief is basically love, intense love that you have for the person that is now gone, that has nowhere to go. And so that love is basically migrated into this pain. And it's pain you're carrying, and it's pain that keeps you from being able to function in the way that you would normally. And that's normal. We're not made to be able to bounce back from such pain so quickly. And especially when it's something where the loss is so big and so large and affects so many people. That creates an additional type of trauma that is even bigger than when one person was to die. So I want to express, first of all, that. I want everyone to feel that and know that the heaviness that you're feeling, that is normal. The amount of kind of like secondary trauma people are experiencing, even if you did not have a specific person that you lost in this, even if you did not have that personal connection, just the images, the information, the consistent messaging, that exposure to that trauma is a secondary trauma that becomes really problematic. So I first just want to talk about that grief and that love and it having nowhere to go and normalize that for you. And then I wanted to talk about how you deal with that with children. That's a much harder thing. It's a much bigger thing. Because with children, they personalize tragedy. They personalize anything that's happening in their environment. Developmentally, they're egocentric anyway. And so to them, this might feel really personal, even if they don't have that personal connection, more so than maybe you might even feel. And so for children, the number one thing to do is to validate it. You have to talk about it. You've got to let them know that anything they feel is okay. If they are scared, they are sad, they are angry, they are disassociated, any of those feelings are normal. And you too can also have any of those feelings and be normal. And oftentimes I hear parents that say, I don't want to show my child that I'm hurting. I don't want my child to see how angry I am or how sad I am, so I've got to be strong. Well, I commend you for wanting to be strong for your children. That's a beautiful thing. But you're actually doing them injustice if you don't let them see how you feel. Because they're looking for you for modeling. They're looking for you to see how they're allowed to feel. And you want to show them and give them all the space in the room to feel their feelings. I hope you would be feeling your feelings as well. So maybe that looks something like telling your child, I'm really sad. I'm really sad and I'm really angry about this tragedy. And yeah, mommy's hurting or dad's struggling. And you say that to them so they know that. And that gives them permission to feel their feelings. And you can ask, how are you feeling? Do you want to talk about it? Or do you just want to sit together? Because sometimes presence is the best thing you can give. And we're going to circle back to presence in a minute. But I want to stay on this part because it also brings up something else, and that when you are trying to be strong for your child and you show them that you're trying to hold it in, they might infer that they don't have the space to be able to tell you how they feel because they don't want to upset you. They don't want to hurt you further. And so they will then bear a burden to worry about you. So you want to be able to tell your child, I'm sad, I'm crying, I'm hurt, I'm angry, whatever the feelings are, but you don't have to worry about me. I want you to feel the same way, and you tell me how you're feeling, and we can talk through it. But don't worry about me. I'm able to talk through my feelings, and it makes me feel better. And this is just a time it's going to take till we all feel better. And so it's important to validate that. It's important to walk through that conversation with your children. And it's important to model that sense of calmness, although being very authentic with your feelings. Another thing is, how do we even tell our children what happens? What if a child is saying, what happened? What is this about? What is going on? I like to talk about authentic and honest language. With children, we have to be careful what we say. And again, I'm speaking right now to a younger audience here on this when I'm referencing children. But if you think about using loss, as we so often use the word loss, and I use the word loss often, I've probably done it so far in this podcast. But with the child, we can't say lost. Sarah was lost. We can't say that because to them, they might have lost a toy and then they remember they found it later. Or they may have lost a dog in the neighborhood that came back home. And you don't want them not understanding that the death we're referring to is permanent. So although it is very difficult to use that kind of language, I must encourage you to use honest and direct language with your children. And be prepared that may be painful for them, and it may be really painful for you, but it's what's needed so they understand that. And then you might have to have a further difficult conversation, which is to explain what death is. If they've never had someone pass away in their family, they may not understand that. So you have to talk about the actual scientific bodily facts, which is we don't breathe anymore. We're not here anymore. And then if you are religious or spiritual, you can tie in what that means to you. If you're not, you can be just very factual about what happens in your body. They have to have an understanding of what death is. And then you wrap that up with, again, further conversation about how you feel about it, how you feel the pain, the loss, the anger, the confusion, the sadness, the depression even. It's okay to say to your child, I'm so sad, I'm having a little trouble doing things that make me happy right now, so I really want to rest a little bit in bed. That's okay to say that, but you want to explain it so your child doesn't worry about you. You may want to invite your child to sit with you and maybe read a book with you so you both can have quiet rest time that expresses that these feelings are really heavy without having to leave them wondering if you're okay. Another thing with children is routines. One of the best things for kids to be able to recover a little more quickly on a path with this type of especially secondary trauma is routines. And that's hard in the summer because a lot of parents are just kind of flying by the seat of their pants anyway and schedules are disrupted. But if you can do something as simple as get back on when we're waking up in the morning and let's make breakfast together, or it's lunchtime and this is the time we're going to eat lunch, or in the afternoons we normally have story time or we're playing with this thing, or it's when we go outdoors for a walk, whatever it may be, keep you some sort of structure and routine, because that structure gives a child some boundaries that feel really safe for them. Children like routine. It establishes emotional safety. And right now, during all this time, that's what everybody's looking for, adults and children alike. So the more routine-oriented you can be for a child is going to establish some safety that's going to make them feel good. I wanted to talk about an activity that would also help with your child. It's recommended when you're trying to speak to somebody about something heavy, and I usually mention this for a teen, but it's going to work for a child too. Maybe sometimes don't have that eye contact like I'm having with you right now. Being able to have your child sitting next to you and maybe y'all are drawing together. Maybe you're playing a game together and you're not making eye contact makes it feel a little less heavy. And especially if you're both looking straight ahead doing something, or you're looking down and you're not making that eye contact, you can talk about something more difficult. You can be coloring and saying, hey, how do you feel, honey? I haven't checked in with you today. And if they're quiet or if they say, I'm fine, then you open it up. You lead by example and say, well, I'm not fine. I'm still hurting. I'm still really sad. I'm trying to enjoy my day with you and find some joy together because I love you, but I'm still really sad. And to be able to say that and give your child permission to understand they can still feel joy and feel sadness at the same time, because that can be a really confusing message also. They might think that if they see you feeling joyous or happy for a moment, that now everything's all better. And so explaining what that looks like is that as human beings, we're wired to try to seek dopamine, to try to seek our serotonin levels to be leveled off and to find that sense of happiness in our life. And it's okay to do that. And it's not a betrayal against the pain or the space you're trying to hold for the death of losing someone that you love, that mattered to you, or the secondary trauma of just the heaviness of so many lives being lost. So that's important, I think, to expand on that joy being coupled with pain, and sadness and depression being coupled with glimpses of happiness. So talk to your kids about that as well, and be able to model that as well. And the more play you can do, children feel safe with play. That's why we offer at our practice at Pinkerton Psychotherapy, we do play therapy for that very reason with young children, because it's so helpful for them to be able to express how they feel when they do not have the words. Now for teens, as we switch gears, that's a little different, because teens have a much better understanding of their feelings. But what teens more often do is they just shut down and they say, I'm fine, or I don't want to talk about it. And you've got to keep talking about it. Even if you're hitting a brick wall, I want you to be able to say to your child consistently, or your young soon-to-be adult or tween, is to say, hey, I know you keep telling me you're fine, and I know you don't want to talk about it, but I'm not fine. And I just want to keep checking in with you, or I want to talk about it because I worry about you. And I want you to have all the permission and all the space to know that talking with me is safe. I'm here to keep you safe emotionally, physically, and I want to talk to you and be there for you as a support person, even if we do nothing other than sit and say, yeah, this sucks and this hurts. And that's it. Just maybe those two sentences, this sucks and it hurts. And being present, because that presence is, again, what allows us to co-regulate. When we have another adult in our presence that feels calm and feels as though we can feel safe, then we will start feeling safe. It is a neuroscience activity of how our body mirrors energy. So being able to be present and co-regulate with your child or young adult is really helpful too. And being able to consistently circle back with them about their feelings, especially as we move through a lot of processions that are going on. There's been memorial services, there have been prayer vigils locally, there's been events, there will be funerals, there will be posts, there will be messages about loss. And it is so consistent in that messaging that it's so important to be able to continually talk about what you're seeing going on, and continually provide your children a concept of we are safe to talk to. And the only way we get out of this is through, and that through is by conversation and validation and reassurance. Something else to mention is about if your child is going to go to another camp, maybe later in the summer, or if your child maybe has some fears about not being with you, that separation anxiety that shows up. Or maybe, for instance, I worked with a family recently this week that their child just didn't want to go get in the river at their lake house, which is in another state, because that concept of the water rushing, or that concept of being away from their parents, or the concept of being at any camp has resonated in their brain as a sense of fear. And so the way we approach that is right through it directly. Being able to say, I know you're afraid. You have every right to be afraid, but let me talk you through that. If it's we're going to go swim in our lake somewhere else, let's talk about how right now we can look at the weather together. There's no weather event right now at this moment. And if there was, we're going to be paying attention to that right here together. And you just tread very carefully around that, but letting them know that you're on it, letting them know that you're aware, letting them know that it's okay. If it's about being away from you, how can we establish some safety? Would it feel better if while you're at your grandparents' house, I'm calling you in the morning and at night? Would it feel better that you're going to take the iPad and I've linked calling and you can reach out to me whenever you want? Will it feel better that you go tell Aunt Jane or whoever you're with to call mom or call dad? Do you want to take this stuffy, this blanket with you? Doing whatever you can to make them feel safe by having the conversation. And if it's just about, I don't want to leave your side, then say, you don't have to leave my side. Let's do a little more things together this week. Or, if I have an appointment and I can't change it, let's talk about what you can do during that time to feel better. It's just facing it. It's not avoiding it. When we go to avoidance because we don't want to mess with that, it's going to bite us. We have to be able to have the more difficult conversations consistently on a daily basis. When you need to know if you need to get therapeutic help, when you need to seek more support. As we talk about all these things and how it will show up, the sadness, the anger, maybe the disassociation, the depression, also there's bigger things like acting out. There's bigger things like extreme anger. There's survivor's guilt for people who have such a feeling of guilt over them living when someone else did not. There's people who are not able to get out of bed, who are not able to find any joy in life in any way. There's people who are struggling so much that they are disoriented and disconnected from life. When you are in that place, you probably need some help. You need to come speak with a licensed professional to help you go through that process of grief and the stages of grief and exploring those feelings and getting the validation, the reassurance that you need during those steps. So I really recommend, if you're experiencing something in that way, that you seek some help. And we offer that, and so many of my peers in our community are offering that as well. We're all here for people that are struggling. I just recommend that you don't wait. And if you are a partner, that you see your partner struggling, if your spouse or your significant other is not being able to get out of bed, or they're not eating, or they may have a secondary reaction to the trauma, such as shingles or sickness or muscle aches or pain or consistent headaches, that sometimes is just our body saying we've exceeded our ability to cope. And we are way past our window of tolerance, and now we're having this somatic physical response to our pain. Those are really big signs that we need to do some work on a therapeutic side that's bigger than that. And so I urge you to be able to understand that might be the time to get some help. Also, for partners, I want to touch back on that too. If you see that your person is hurting, meet them where they are. Instead of saying you'll be fine or it's going to get better, which those platitudes suck, frankly. They don't help. Just say, let me sit with you. Let me hold your hand and let me sit with you. Or let me go make your favorite cup of tea. Or let me go bring you your favorite snack. Or what would make you feel good? Being able to show that you are there to support. And with that, let's migrate over, and how do you support a loved one, period, whether they're your partner or not? Let's say it's your neighbor, it's your friend. Being able to spring into action without asking questions is imperative. Rather than saying, would you like some dinner? Can I bring it to you? That's requiring that person to think. And they may not be in a place to be able to think or process, especially if they're really struggling with deep grief and deep pain. Instead, be the person that just starts a meal train and brings dinner. Be the person that says, I brought you some clean towels and I'm going to take your dirty ones to wash. Be the friend that says, I'm picking up your child from camp or tutoring or whatever they're doing, friend's house to play, and I'll bring them home. You just spring into action and show that you can be relied upon and you're dependable and you're moving forward, so they don't have to right then. You're giving them permission to say, I've got you. And if it's none of those things, let's go back to the simple act of presence. Come over to see your friend and say, I just want to sit with you. I just want to sit with you. I'll read a book while you sit next to me and I'll hold your hand. Or if you just want to read a book, I'll sit next to you. If you want to sleep, I'll sit next to you. If you want to stare off into space, I'm here. Showing that you are unbothered and unfettered by their pain and you can hold it as a vessel and as a container for your friend is huge. It means more than you'll probably be able to recognize. Also, looking back and saying, from a texting standpoint, maybe you're not close enough to go by their house or you don't want to impose. Sending a text that says, I'm thinking of you and I'm here, no need to reply. Checking in on you this morning, you don't need to answer. Letting you know I love you and I'm thinking about you, and if you're spiritual, saying I'm praying for you. Being able to consistently check in, but letting them know I don't need an answer. That lets them off the hook when they're really maybe struggling just to put one foot in front of the other every day. So those things are really crucial to know. Also, we're going to have a situation here where we might get to a place where we feel like we're functioning better, and then school starts again, which is going to revisit and regurgitate all these feelings that we might have either processed or might have repressed in an unhealthy way too, that now it's coming up and bubbling up again. And children especially will reprocess trauma and pain over and over again, regardless of school or anything else. They sometimes need many times. That's why you might see a child who asks the same question over and over and over again. And you won't be getting frustrated saying, I've answered that. You can't be frustrated. You've just got to keep answering it with the same consistent message. But with school, this might get brought up again. So have that conversation with your child or your teen. Say, hey, this might be really difficult at school when you're going back. I'm here for you. If you want to talk about it, let me know what happened. Let me know what anybody was saying. I'm right here to support you. I love you. I know it's going to be hard. And giving them the space to recognize that it's okay for this to all be revisited, and it might happen. And be able to express that we'll work through it together. So I want to also mention too is the stages of grief in general for people who don't know what that is. If you've not had any experience feeling that, our stages of grief are anger, their denial, their depression, their bargaining, and their acceptance. And there is no pattern of how you feel them, meaning that you can work through all those and you think you're good, and then sadness comes back up in a wave, that depression. You might work through that and think that I've now accepted it, and then something triggers you and you're angry again. That is normal. And I want to completely normalize and validate those feelings for you. There is no end date. Healing is not this linear experience. You're going to have these waves of feelings about when you feel better, when you feel worse. And sometimes that can be confusing for people who also really repress their feelings, because they might feel such a relief when you seem better, and then here you are again. So I want you to feel confident to know that is normal. And if someone in your life doesn't see that, tell them that. Send them to me. I'll tell them. It is normal to go through these different waves and experiences over and over again. And I look at this remembering, as I said in the beginning, that grief is a place for love that doesn't have anywhere to go. There's no more container or vessel for it. And it's just out there in the ether, and we're breathing it and living it and feeling it and swimming in it. And it's so very hard to come up for air. And I want you to recognize that all those feelings are okay. And if you need some help, please reach out and get some. Thank you.